The greatest victory is to conquer yourself. Buddha, in a world where so many things seem designed to disturb our peace, other people's words, their attitudes, our expectations, judgments, even the thoughts we create without meaning to, there exists a quiet truth the Buddha taught centuries ago. Real strength does not come from controlling what is outside, but from mastering the storm within. That journey begins right there, in that intimate space where nothing can harm you unless you give it permission. Through these teachings, listening more than you speak, refusing to let others' opinions dictate your life, being mentally prepared for the worst without living in fear, seeing failure as the seed of progress, embracing simplicity, cultivating humility, and distrusting the illusions of fortune, you discover that serenity is not coldness but inner mastery. It is a way of walking through the world without letting the world break you. Because acting as if nothing disturbs you is not indifference, it is wisdom in motion. It is the ability to live from a center no storm can move. Principle 1 teaches us to listen twice as much as we speak. For in the heart of Buddhism, listening is not merely hearing sound. It is a deep practice that invites us to understand the essence of words, the emotions that sustain them, and the silence that surrounds them. Buddha said, "To understand everything is to forgive everything," reminding us that understanding is the root of compassion. When we truly listen, we perceive not only what is spoken, but also what could not be spoken: hidden fears, old wounds, unconfessed desires. Listening becomes a bridge into the human heart, a doorway into everything we are and everything we share. Yet in daily life, we often give more space to our own voice than to anyone else's, interrupting, finishing sentences, replying before understanding, or staying silent while the mind prepares its response. True listening means stopping that inner urgency, allowing the world to reach us without filters or haste, without forcing our interpretations. When we listen more than we speak, our empathy expands, our sensitivity deepens, and we begin to perceive the subtle, silent side of life, the whisper of the wind, the stillness of dawn, the quiet presence of those who suffer unseen. Listening teaches us to perceive the invisible, and once our words arise from that depth, they carry more truth and more wisdom. They no longer come from impulse, but from understanding. An old story tells of a brilliant yet impatient king who rarely listened to anyone. One day, disguised among his people, he met a deaf old man outside a humble home. The king spoke endlessly about justice and wisdom, expecting admiration, but the man simply smiled, irritated. The king demanded an explanation, and the old man replied, "Everything in this world speaks, but only reveals itself to those who know how to listen. Your Majesty, you do not listen to the world, you only hear your own voice." Like lightning, the king realized that his weakness was not ignorance, but his inability to open himself to others. He had never truly listened to his ministers, to his people, or to life itself. He had only heard the echo of his own ego. This story reflects humanity's greatest obstacle, living inside ourselves, interpreting the world through personal filters without truly hearing what others try to express. Buddha taught that silence and openness are the roots of understanding. When we listen without judging, without anticipating, without needing to be right, the other ceases to be a stranger and becomes a mirror revealing part of who we are. Deep listening transforms not only our relationships, but our inner world. Because listening is an act of pure presence, one of the most genuine forms of love, Imagine life as a vast forest of sounds, birds singing, leaves rustling, rivers murmuring. The distracted traveler hears nothing, but the attentive one discovers an entire universe. So it is with inner listening. The more we listen, the more we understand that life has always been speaking to us, but we had no space to receive its message. Listening connects us with the vulnerable, the shy person who cannot raise their voice, the elder repeating stories because they long to be heard, the child crying without knowing how to explain, the friend who smiles while their eyes beg for help. Compassion arises naturally when listening becomes profound, not from duty, but from understanding. If I were in their place, I might feel the same. From the Buddhist view, listening is also a path to self-knowledge. Our wounds, fears, and judgments speak too. And when we listen without fear, we free ourselves. Silence itself becomes a teacher in which intuition and truth emerge on their own. Those who cultivate deep listening speak little, but their words become seeds soft, wise, healing. As a Zen master said, when you speak, you repeat what you know. When you listen, you learn what you do not know. Listening enriches, it humanizes, it opens the door to wisdom. It is the first gateway to awakening because it requires humility, patience, presence, and openness. When we listen this way, life slows down and reveals a rhythm deeper and more authentic. Listening twice as much as we speak is not social etiquette. It is a spiritual path, the art of being present, of honoring others and ourselves. When we truly listen, we understand better and we love better. And through that quiet love born of genuine attention, life itself transforms. Principle 2 reminds us not to let the words or attitudes of others control our lives. For life is like a long ascent up a sacred mountain. Along the way, we meet voices pointing directions, hands signaling routes, people insisting where we should go. But only we can choose the path. No one truly knows the inner landscape of our heart. Buddha taught, do not dwell in the past. Do not dream of the future. Concentrate the mind on the present moment. Do not live trapped in others' opinions or in their fears projected onto you. Stay rooted in the present, where your life is shaped step by step like a traveler who climbs without being shaken by the noise below. Listening to advice is wise, but there is a thin line between listening and surrendering the steering wheel of your life. When we allow others' comments, criticism, expectations, mockery to dictate our decisions, we silently renounce our freedom and abandon our true path. Fidelity to one's heart is not selfishness, but spiritual responsibility. Only you can hear the deep voice within that knows when to advance, rest, or change direction. To illustrate this, we recall the luminous story of the man who insulted Buddha. Filled with anger, he tried to provoke a reaction, but Buddha remained calm. Confused, the man asked, "Aren't you angry?" Buddha replied gently, "If someone offers you a gift and you do not accept it, to whom does it belong?" The man fell silent. The same is true of insults. Buddha said, "If I do not accept them, they remain with the one who offers them." The lesson is profound. Words only have power if we take them in. The real harm is not what others say, but what we allow to enter our heart. As the sages say, what someone says is their karma. How you respond is yours. And it is precisely in that freedom to choose our response where our true power resides. The one who becomes angry, who defends themselves with fury, who feels diminished by criticism is handing their peace into someone else's hands. But the one who remains centered in their inner truth, no matter how loud the external noise becomes, grows unshakable like a mountain standing firm against the wind. Imagine your emotions as a quiet pond. When someone throws an insult at you, it is as if they have cast a stone into the water. Yes, the surface ripples. Yes, there is a moment of movement. But if you do not cling to the disturbance, the waves fade and the water returns to its natural stillness. The pond does not hold the stone, nor cling to the motion. It simply allows everything to pass. In the same way, the mind can learn to let other people's words move through without staying. We may feel a small impact, a brief ripple, but if we do not feed it with thoughts and resentment, the quiet returns. When we live dependent on others' approval or judgment, we live in chains. If they praise us, we feel worthy. And if they criticize us, we feel small. Our self-esteem shifts like a leaf in the wind. But spiritual freedom begins when we understand that no one has the right to define our value. Value arises from within, from the coherence between what we feel and how we live. A heart faithful to itself does not need applause, because it knows peace cannot be bought with external recognition. Living from the inside is returning to that silent place where only what is true matters. The wise teach that the greatest trap on the path is living to please others. For in doing so, one drifts away from their essence and ends up acting out a role that was never theirs. Each person comes into life with a purpose, and that purpose does not depend on whether others approve. Whoever lives to please loses their center. But whoever lives in harmony with their truth, no matter the rejection or misunderstanding they face, finds an inexplicable inner strength. A strength born from authenticity. When we stop reacting to others' words, something inside us stabilizes. Criticism becomes a distant echo. Insults become passing clouds. And praise turns into a soft breeze that does not alter the direction of our steps. We become the mountain that does not bow to the storm. And in that steadiness, we learn that freedom is not won outside, but within. The practice, ultimately, is about seeing clearly, seeing that others' words are impermanent, seeing that our reaction is optional, seeing that our path belongs only to us. When we truly see, we stop clinging to opinions. The heart grows lighter, the mind grows still, and life regains its natural direction. Not letting others' words or attitudes control your life does not mean becoming indifferent or arrogant. It means recognizing that your peace matters more than any external judgment, that your worth does not depend on outside voices, and that your destiny can only be guided by you. When you walk this way, free from the weight of opinion, each step becomes authentic. Each decision rises from your center, and each day becomes an act of inner freedom. And then, as Buddhism teaches, you discover that true strength is not overpowering the world, but remaining at peace within yourself, regardless of what the world says or does. This is the freedom no one can take from you. This is the summit of the sacred mountain. Principle 3 teaches us to be willing to accept the worst. For in Buddhist wisdom, understanding the real nature of suffering is essential to finding inner serenity. Buddha said, "Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. Pain is part of the human condition. We will lose. We will separate. We will fall ill. We will watch loved ones depart, but suffering, that tightening in the chest born of resistance, is a choice the mind makes when it clings to what can no longer be. just as day follows night. Life holds moments of calm and moments of turbulence. Expecting the river of existence to always be gentle is denying reality. Wise is the one who accepts that some waters will strike hard while others will flow softly. Acceptance is not surrender and not pessimism. It is a spiritual life jacket, an inner preparation that prevents us from drowning when the waves rise. It is acknowledging that life will bring challenges, losses, changes, endings we did not choose, and beginnings we did not expect. When we accept this truth, we grow less fragile, not because we stop feeling pain, but because we no longer fight the inevitable. Resistance creates suffering. When the mind says, "Why me? This shouldn't be happening. This cannot be real," it traps itself in rejection and deepens the wound. But when instead we gently say, "This is what is here now," something loosens inside us. The load becomes lighter, and space opens for tranquility even in the storm. Acceptance does not heal instantly, but it opens the path to healing. One of the most moving stories illustrating this principle is that of Kisa Gotami, a young mother who lost her only child. Desperate and unable to bear the pain, she wandered with the small body in her arms, searching for someone who could bring him back to life. When she finally reached Buddha, she begged him to resurrect her son. Buddha, with deep compassion, told her he could help. But first, he needed a mustard seed from a house where no one had ever died. Hopeful, she went from village to village. But every home answered the same: "Someone has died here too." By nightfall, exhausted, she understood the truth. Her grief had blinded her too. Death was not a punishment meant only for her, but a destiny shared by all human beings. Returning to Buddha, she realized her suffering did not come only from loss, but from resisting a universal reality. By opening her heart to truth, she released part of her pain. This story does not minimize tragedy. It honors it by showing that accepting reality does not erase pain, but dissolves the additional suffering that comes from fighting what already is. Kisa Gotami never stopped loving her son. She simply stopped resisting the law of life. And in that surrender, healing began. A spiritual teacher once said, "When you fight the truth, you suffer twice, once from what happens, and once from resisting it. The first wound belongs to life, the second belongs to the mind." Accepting the worst does not mean wishing for it, nor resigning ourselves to it. It means being prepared to face it when it comes. Just as a sailor cannot prevent storms, but can carry a life jacket, maintain his boat, and remain calm when the sky darkens. Knowing storms will come does not remove fear, but it prevents panic. Acceptance does not eliminate pain, but it prevents it from destroying us. It teaches us to flow. Life is like a river. There are rocks, whirlpools, narrow passages, and wide expanses. If we fight the current, we exhaust ourselves. If we try to stop the water with our hands, we find only frustration. But if we stop resisting and allow the river to carry us, we discover movement is part of existence. Pain behaves the same. The more we push it away, the more it becomes stuck. The more we deny it, the more it suffocates us. But when we accept it like a wave that comes and eventually retreats, something within aligns with reality, and serenity appears. Acceptance does not mean stopping feeling. It means stopping the fight with what we feel. There are pains that arrive like a cold wind through the skin. There are losses that leave a silence so vast it seems endless. But even that silence is part of the path. Accepting it allows us to hear it, learn from it, and eventually transform it. Sometimes the worst is not the event itself, but our fear of facing it. We fear pain as if it were a wave that will destroy us, when in truth, it is a wave that comes to teach us about impermanence, love, and inner strength. By cultivating acceptance, we gain a different kind of courage, the courage to look at reality without masks, without lies, without self-deception. It is a quiet, humble courage that transforms us into freer beings. Because we stop depending on life always being as we want. In that freedom, we find an inner refuge nothing can take. When we accept the worst, we begin ironically to live better, more present, more authentic, more grateful for calm moments and stronger in turbulent ones. Acceptance does not mean constantly expecting disaster. It means knowing that if it comes, you can walk through it. It is telling yourself, I do not wish for the storm, but I know I can withstand it if it arrives. That inner certainty, born of clarity rather than naive optimism, is one of the greatest sources of peace, like the river flowing around the rock, like the tree bending in the wind without breaking. Our life becomes flexible, resilient, serene. Ultimately, accepting the worst opens the door to the best. Because when we stop fighting reality, we discover the strength that was always there. Waiting, we discover peace does not come when storms disappear, but when we stop fearing them. We discover that even in our most painful moments, there exists a deep place of silence and clarity where the mind rests and the heart renews itself. When we learn to dwell there, we find our true inner home. Principle 4 teaches us not to fear failure, for it is the only path to progress. In the Buddhist view, each day is a new opportunity, a quiet rebirth, inviting us to leave behind what no longer serves us and walk with more clarity toward what matters. Buddha expressed it beautifully. Each morning we are born again. What we do today matters most. This reminds us that the past, with all its mistakes and stumbles, is not a sentence but a field of learning. Failure is not punishment nor proof of inadequacy. It is a tool, a cornerstone in the process of growing, transforming, and awakening. From birth, we learn that advancing requires falling. A child does not walk without falling dozens of times. Each stumble is the body adjusting balance, strengthening muscles, refining movement. No parent scolds a child for falling, they encourage them, lift them, smile at the attempt. That is how we should treat ourselves, with patience, tenderness, and understanding. But as we grow, we forget this simple wisdom and begin to fear the fall. We fear being wrong. We fear being judged. We fear discovering we are not as secure as we pretend. Yet true progress, the kind that transforms the heart and mind, only appears when we allow ourselves to fail. Every mistake is like the strike of a chisel against rough stone. At first it appears to be a wound, a fracture, but when seen clearly, it is a necessary step in revealing the sculpture that has always been hidden within. In the same way, each error shapes our character, polishes our ignorance, and opens cracks through which the light of understanding can enter. Failures do not distort us, they reveal us. They do not leave us weaker, they show us where the soul must be strengthened. What matters is not how many times we fall, but how many times we choose to rise again with greater wisdom and serenity than before. Buddha himself walked through a profound process of trial, error, and transformation. Before attaining enlightenment, Siddhartha Gautama spent 6 years practicing extreme asceticism, prolonged fasting, relentless meditation, physical deprivation, rejecting nearly all bodily needs. He believed that mortifying the flesh would lead him to truth. But his body grew so weak that one day he collapsed beside a river, close to death. To many, that moment would have been proof of his spiritual failure. Yet, when Siddhartha regained consciousness, he understood something that would forever transform the history of Buddhism. That extreme path did not bring him closer to wisdom, but to needless suffering. Instead of clinging to pride, he accepted the truth of his collapse. And through that acceptance, the principle of the middle way was born, the path of balance and clarity that eventually led him to enlightenment beneath the Bodhi tree. What the world called failure was, in truth, the gateway to understanding. What looked like defeat became the defining moment of his entire spiritual journey. Had Siddhartha not passed through that mistake, he would never have discovered the path that is now the heart of Buddhism. This story shows us that even the wisest must err, must fall, must release false ideas in order to embrace deeper truth. Failure, then, is not the enemy of the spiritual path, but its silent companion. A Zen master once said, "He who fears failure has never stepped onto the path of truth." And he was right. The fear of failing is, at its core, fear of seeing ourselves as we truly are. When we fall, illusions crack, illusions of control, unrealistic expectations, layers of pride, and through those cracks, light enters, the light of discernment, humility, authentic wisdom. Accepting failure as part of the journey makes us freer. It frees us from paralyzing perfectionism, from harsh self-judgment, from the need to pretend. We learn that life is not a straight line of accumulated successes, but a continuous flow of attempts, adjustments, and transformation. Each error is a message. This is not the way, try another. Each stumble is an invitation. Look deeper, see what you missed. And each rising is a quiet affirmation. I am still here. I am still learning. I am still growing. Life, like a mountain path, requires us to move without guarantees. Sometimes we choose difficult detours. Other times, the terrain unexpectedly steepens. We trip over our expectations, our fears, our lack of clarity. But if we look at each fall with the eyes of a student rather than a judge, we discover that failure never knocks us down completely. It opens new possibilities. Fear, on the other hand, can freeze us entirely. The one who fears falling so much that they stop walking condemns themselves to remain in the same place. That is why accepting failure as a teacher is more important than accumulating success. When we stop fearing mistakes, something beautiful rises within us. Courage, not a loud, aggressive courage, but a quiet, deep courage that allows us to act without depending on the outcome. We dare to try what once felt impossible. We give ourselves permission to learn, explore, and discover. We begin to see that each day is truly a rebirth, a blank page where past scars matter less than the intention we bring to the present. What matters is what we choose today, what we build today. Authentic progress is never linear. It moves in waves of falls and ascents, doubts and discoveries. Failure is simply a sign that we are moving, experimenting, alive. When we understand this, fear loses its power. We no longer walk with a clenched heart, but with an open mind. And in that openness, real growth appears. Accepting failure is accepting human nature. It is understanding that we are not machines built to always get it right, but beings who learn through experience. Each mistake is a disguised teacher. Each fall is an opportunity to release another illusion, refine another part of ourselves, and make room for more truth. Seen this way, failure is not a shadow to avoid, but a lantern that illuminates the next step. Ultimately, do not fear failure, for within it lies the doorway to progress. Do not fear falling, for within the fall lives the seed of transformation. Do not fear erring, for within the error the right path reveals itself. As the wise say, every time you fall, a part of your ego breaks, and every time you rise, a part of your spirit awakens. And so, step by step, through stumbles and rebirths, true wisdom is formed. Principle 5 teaches us to keep things simple, for in simplicity we find clarity and peace. In Buddhist teachings, simplicity is not a withdrawal from the world, but a way of inhabiting it with more lucidity. Buddha said, "The way is not in the sky, the way is in the heart." The path is not somewhere far away, not in complicated theories or unreachable goals, but inside, in the quiet simplicity of a heart that knows how to distinguish what is essential from what merely fills space. Modern life, with its urgencies, comparisons, and limitless desires, pushes us to fill our world with things, tasks, expectations, and noise. But the more we carry, the less we see. A saturated mind becomes cloudy. A heart overloaded with demands loses its softness. Simplicity is therefore an act of inner liberation, clearing the path so peace can enter. Imagine your life as a garden. Many flowers grow there, but not all require your care. Some bloom on their own. Some wither regardless of effort. If you try to tend them all, you exhaust yourself. Wisdom lies in recognizing which flowers nourish your soul and which, no matter how much attention you give them, only drain your energy. Some relationships nourish, others deplete. Some activities illuminate, others merely fill the calendar. Keeping life simple means focusing your care on what gives meaning and letting the unnecessary follow its natural course. It is not bitter renunciation, but an act of self-love. Simplicity is also air. It creates space for the mind to breathe. When we remove the unnecessary imagined worries, accumulated objects, unhelpful habits, oppressive expectations, and inner freshness emerges. It is not about living with nothing but living without excess. Excess confuses us. Too many desires, too many voices, too many comparisons. When noise fades, clarity appears on its own, like stars reflected in a clear night sky. The night is beautiful not because of how many things fill it, but because of the spaciousness that allows each star to shine. Likewise, the mind finds depth in simplicity. Once, a man approached Buddha with a weary face and troubled heart. "My life is full of entanglements," he said. "So much to do, so much to fix, so much to achieve. I find no peace." Buddha listened, then replied with calmness, Happy is the one who knows how to be content." The man frowned, confused, and Buddha added, "The root of your torment is not the tasks nor the problems, but your constant desire to have more, to be more, to control more. Release just one desire, one that burdens you today, and you will see how space for peace appears. In that moment, the man realized his suffering did not come from the outside world, but from the internal weight of his own demands. This story shows that the search for peace is not about simplifying the external world, but simplifying the inner one. We often believe we need more time, more money, more organization, more validation. But Buddhism reminds us that true simplicity begins when we drop one word: more. The mind that always wants more is restless. The mind that allows enough finds rest. A Zen master explained, "We do not sink because of the weight, but because we carry what we do not need." The suffering comes not from how many things are in our life, but from the attachment we have to them. When we are willing to let go, life becomes lighter, like the gentle exhale after a long breath. Simplicity is not deprivation, it is an invitation to return to the natural rhythm of being. Keeping things simple does not mean living without ambition or dreams. It means understanding which dreams come from the heart and which arise from comparison or fear. It means knowing what helps you grow and what merely fills temporary emptiness. It means asking within, does this really matter? Does this nourish my peace or steal it? When the answer is clear, decisions become effortless. A simple life also teaches presence, with fewer distractions, fewer objects, fewer artificial commitments. We can truly be in what we do. Tea tastes deeper. Conversation becomes sincere. Silence becomes nourishing. Time stops fragmenting into endless tasks and regains its natural continuity. Nothing accelerates. Nothing disconnects. Simplicity restores sacredness to the moment. At its core, simplifying is letting go of expectations, dramatizations, invisible obligations, and roles we play to please the world. When we let go, authenticity appears, the mind clears, the heart softens, the body relaxes, and life, once a labyrinth, reveals its path. Like the night sky shining brightest when free of clouds and artificial lights. Inner clarity emerges when we remove the confusion created by excess. The brightness is already there, it only needs space. That space appears when we stop complicating life unnecessarily, when we stop chasing the extraordinary and begin honoring the simple. A deep breath, a shared meal, a quiet sunrise, a kind gesture. Simplicity is a spiritual practice, the choice of peace over pride, clarity over chaos, the essential over the superficial. It is not a path walked once, but a constant return. Each day we can examine what we carry and ask, does this need to be here? Sometimes, dropping one thought, one worry, one habit makes the entire life feel lighter. Ultimately, keeping things simple is returning to the home of the heart. It is remembering that peace is found not by accumulating, but by releasing. That clarity arrives not by adding more ideas, but by silencing the ones that clutter. That when life grows heavy, we can always stop, breathe, and allow the essential to take its place again. In that simplicity, joy becomes possible, and the mind, like the starry sky, regains its natural depth. Principle 6 teaches us to practice humility, the quiet doorway to true wisdom. On the spiritual path, humility does not mean diminishing oneself or thinking little of who we are. It means inhabiting a state of inner peace where there is no need to prove, compete, or stand out. As the ancient texts teach, a man is not called wise because he talks and talks without end, Wisdom does not reside in the one who speaks the loudest, but in the one who listens deeply, feels clearly, and acts from the heart without seeking recognition. Humility is a soft, almost invisible quality, yet capable of profoundly transforming anyone who cultivates it. It is a way of being in which the mind stops clinging to the image of the self and allows love, serenity, and understanding to bloom. A humble person does not need to display themselves, because their life itself becomes their teaching. Their actions speak louder than words. They do not seek to impose, but to connect. They do not strive to always be right, but to understand the reasons of others. In their presence, people feel seen and heard, because humility opens the space for genuine listening. A humble being learns from everyone: the wise, children, nature, silence. Their heart is open to receive, and for that very reason, their wisdom grows effortlessly. Humility breaks down the walls of the ego, those inner defenses that separate us from one another, and in their place builds bridges of empathy, cooperation, and compassion. Where pride closes, humility opens, and where ego hardens, humility softens. A famous Zen story illustrates this brightly. One day, a renowned scholar celebrated for his knowledge and intelligence visited a Zen master seeking spiritual guidance. As soon as he sat down, he began speaking endlessly, explaining theories, quoting books, comparing doctrines. His mind was so full that he could not listen. The master silently began pouring tea for him, slowly and calmly. And even when the cup filled, the master continued pouring until tea overflowed onto the table and floor. Alarmed, the scholar cried, "Master, the cup is full. Nothing more can fit." The master smiled softly and replied, "Exactly. How can I teach you the way if your mind is so full it leaves no space for anything new? Empty your cup first." That overflowing cup is the perfect symbol of the ego, a mind full of opinions, judgments, rigid certainties, and the need to be right. While it remains full, no teaching can enter. Humility is the act of emptying that cup, not renouncing what we know, but making room for what we have yet to understand. Recognizing that knowledge is not a pedestal, but a bridge toward deeper insight. And only those willing to empty themselves can receive truth. A spiritual teacher once said, "Humility is not making yourself smaller, but emptying the illusions you have about yourself." When we stop clinging to the idealized image of who we think we are, we gain the opportunity to see ourselves honestly. Humility invites us to observe our fragility without shame, our mistakes without justification, our limitations without fear. And from this sincerity, a true strength arises. Because we no longer need to defend an artificial image, we become free to learn, free to grow, free to change. Through humility, we learn to value the wisdom hidden in the everyday. Sometimes, a deep lesson appears in the laughter of a child, the fall of a leaf, a simple conversation, or a moment of silence. The humble heart knows everything in life can become a teacher, and nothing is too small to teach us. Living with such openness creates a profound serenity. There is no longer the urgency to stand out, the fear of being less, or the anxiety of being admired. Humility turns competition into cooperation and judgment into understanding. A humble life also softens our relationships. When we release the need to have the last word, listening appears. When we stop justifying our mistakes, honesty appears. When we let go of the desire to be admired, authenticity appears, and this authenticity is magnetic, inspiring, comforting, healing. Humility makes us more human, more approachable, more real. In a world obsessed with noise, speed, and ego, humility becomes an act of spiritual resistance, choosing softness over hardness, presence over appearance, truth over vanity. Practicing humility, the spirit stops warring with itself. Pride creates tension. Humility dissolves it. Ego creates distance. Humility brings closeness. Pride fears being wrong. Humility turns error into a teacher. When we stop identifying with our image, we begin to discover our essence. It is like polishing a fogged crystal behind the ego's projections shines a clear, calm, deep light. And staying close to that light is living from humility. Ultimately, humility is not an external behavior, but an inner state. It is not about appearing humble, but being humble, recognizing we are part of something larger, that we are here to learn, to serve, to love. The humble person does not see themselves as less than others, but neither as more. They know each being, with their stories and struggles, deserves respect. And from that understanding, they walk through the world, sowing peace. When we practice humility, we leave a trail of calm wherever we go. Our presence becomes gentle, our speech more conscious, our actions more compassionate. And without effort, without grand declarations, we become instruments of peace. True humility does not make noise, but it illuminates. It does not demand, but transforms. It does not boast, but liberates. And in that silent freedom, we find a wisdom no book can teach, a wisdom only a humble heart can understand. Principle 7 teaches us to recognize the dangers of wealth, for true abundance is born in the heart. Buddha taught, health is the greatest gift, contentment the greatest wealth, capturing the essential truth that material things are impermanent and fragile. Possessions can be lost, decay, break, or even become chains binding us to fear. External wealth, without inner depth, becomes a burden more than a blessing. Yet, most people chase this illusionary richness endlessly, believing it will bring fulfillment. On the spiritual path, we learn that what is truly valuable cannot be held in the hands. It can only be experienced with an awakened heart. True wealth is what sustains life from within. Health is the foundation of all joys, for without it, even the grandest palace becomes a prison. Contentment, the art of knowing what we have now is enough, is a treasure no thief can steal, and sincere bonds rooted in loyalty, presence, and genuine love are riches that remain even in times of poverty. A shared smile, a simple meal, a quiet walk at sunset. These small experiences hold a beauty far beyond any luxury object. Abundance, seen from the heart, does not depend on quantity, but on the depth with which we live each moment. To understand the dangers of external wealth, consider the story of the poor man and the jar of gold. One day, while digging, he found a great jar filled with golden coins. Dazzled, he clung to it, carried it home trembling with excitement, and for days barely ate or slept, obsessed with his treasure, touching it, counting it, hiding it. But one night, in the dim light, he saw something that froze his breath. Inside the jar, coiled among the coins, was the black silhouette of a snake. Terrified, He fled from his own house and did not return until dawn. When he finally gathered the courage to look again, approaching the jar, he discovered the snake was only an old, twisted rope. In that moment he understood. The jar had never been the threat. His fear of losing it was what had poisoned him. This story is a profound metaphor for attachment. Objects themselves do not harm us, but the desperate fear of losing them does. Gold does not bite, anxiety does. Possessions do not scream. The mind trapped in worry does. Attachment turns a simple object into a monster that dominates our peace. For the more we own, the more we can lose. And the more we can lose, the more fear grows within us. Possessions multiply concerns because the ego identifies with them. We feel we are worth what we own, that we are what we show, that our security depends on what we accumulate. But this path always leads to emptiness, because nothing material can give a peace that only inner stability provides. A monk once said, "When you cling to your possessions, you become the guardian of your fears." And it is true. The grasping mind lives tense, always comparing, protecting, fearing, while the mind that practices detachment lives light. It does not reject its possessions, it rejects the fear tied to them. It knows the material is useful, but not eternal, valuable, but not essential. And from that clarity arises immense freedom. Recognizing the dangers of wealth does not mean rejecting it, but seeing it clearly as a tool, not as emotional refuge. Money can ease suffering, create opportunities, bring comfort, but no amount of it can buy serenity, true love, or spiritual awakening. Only a stable heart can sustain peace. Only a content mind can experience true abundance. Contentment, the knowing of enough, is a spiritual art. Not resignation, but wisdom. Behind constant desire, there is always a sense of lack nothing can fill without contentment. One may have mountains of gold and still feel empty, while gratitude allows someone with little to feel full. Abundance is not in quantity, but in the way we relate to what we have. Thus, the spiritual path invites us to cultivate three treasures that never deteriorate: health, which sustains the body and allows us to experience everything; contentment, which sustains the mind and frees us from craving; and loyalty and true love, which sustain the soul and give meaning to our existence. When these treasures are present, even a simple life shines with deep beauty. When they are absent, even a life surrounded by luxury becomes barren. Ultimately, understanding the dangers of wealth is understanding the essence of human suffering: attachment, clinging to possessions, to status, to personal image, is like holding sand in your hands. The tighter you squeeze, the faster it slips away. But when you loosen your grip, the sand rests softly in your palm. Life works the same way. When we stop grasping, we find peace. Material wealth is temporary, fragile, perishable, easily lost, while inner peace, that silent calm, independent of anything external, is a treasure no one can take. When we truly understand this, we stop chasing wealth as if salvation were inside it and begin to live with more lightness, clarity, and gratitude, discovering that real fortune lies not in what we accumulate, but in what we can feel, share, and live without fear. Step by step, we learn to walk with a free heart, rich in what truly matters. In conclusion, integrating all 7 principles into daily life reveals that they are not distant philosophical ideas reserved for monks or spiritual seekers. They are practical, deeply human tools meant to guide us in every step, every relationship, and every challenge of our everyday journey. Listening with the heart, refusing to be ruled by others' opinions, accepting difficulties, transforming ourselves through failure, simplifying the weight of our burdens, acting with humility, and understanding the dangers of attachment to the material. Each of these principles is a step on the path toward a more conscious and freer life. These principles do not promise a life without pain or conflict. They promise something more real and far more valuable: the ability to move through pain without being destroyed by it, to face conflict without losing our peace, to live with clarity even when the world becomes confusing. They are practices that restore our inner control, reminding us that the mind can learn to rest. The heart can learn to see with lucidity and love. And life can grow lighter when we walk with presence. The ultimate purpose of these teachings is to guide us toward a state of inner peace, serene wisdom, and self-mastery. It is not about escaping the world, but inhabiting it with awareness, not about avoiding challenges, but cultivating the strength to walk through them, not about eliminating all external turbulence, but discovering an inner center that remains steady even in the heart of the storm. That is why the teachings of the Buddha are said to be a compass of the soul. They always point toward clarity. They help us avoid getting lost in the noise of thought, in the whirlwind of emotion, or under the weight of others' expectations. Once integrated, these teachings become a silent guide that awakens in the hardest moments when life demands patience, when sadness weighs heavy, when the ego cracks, when fear rises. The inner compass reminds us of the path of balance. As we apply these principles, we begin to understand ourselves more deeply. We release the urgency to please, to accumulate, to be right, to control. We live with intention, with purpose, with a clear direction. We become more serene, less reactive, more compassionate with others and with ourselves. Life stops feeling like a battle and begins to feel like a path we walk with openness and gratitude. And so, as this journey comes to its close, one simple but sincere blessing remains. May you find clarity on confusing days, kindness on difficult days, and wisdom on quiet days. May your steps be guided by a serene mind and an awakened heart. And may peace, the deep peace that nothing external can give or take away, walk with you always.